If you ask any knowledgeable coffee professional or home enthusiast, what is the most important tool that I can have to help me make great coffee at home, they're going to tell you it's a coffee grinder. But you see, home coffee grinders can cost as little as under $20 to over $2,000. So how do you, as a consumer, know how to sort through all the marketing jargon and know what's going to be the right grinder for your coffee bar and your budget? That's what I'm here for, so let's talk about it. I have 8 coffee grinders here today, 4 electric and 4 manual or hand-powered coffee grinders, and we're gonna look at them as pairs. We're gonna start at the outside and work our way in, and we're gonna start with the least expensive and work our way up to the most expensive and explain the differences along the way. Now, before I get started, I should say that none of these brands featured here today have paid to be part of this video or in any way sponsoring me or the Kona Earth brand. Kona Earth is a coffee farm, not a coffee equipment or accessory retailer, and they figured that if I help you make better coffee at home, you're probably going to be more likely to want to try some of their coffee, which you can find at konaearth.com. Use the promo code COFFEETALK for 10% off your first order. Okay, so the basic tier features a mortar and pestle and an electric blade grinder. Now, the mortar and pestle has been used for centuries to grind coffee and still is in places like Ethiopia. The electric blade grinder is probably the most common kind of coffee grinder that you're going to find in the US. Now, these look radically different from each other, but you should put them in the same category because they are both uncontrolled coffee grinders, meaning there's no mechanism that directly controls how coarsely or finely you grind the coffee. The only thing determining that is the skill of the operator. How you pulse the button or shake the grinder as you're using it will all directly affect the grind size you end up getting, as well as the consistency of that grind size. And if you don't know, the more consistent your grind size, the better your flavor is going to be. And if you'd like to learn more about this, check out episode 2 in the Coffee Talk series. The benefit of these coffee grinders is that they're very easy to find and they're very inexpensive. The downside, of course, is that unless you have a very high skill level in using these, you're probably going to end up with a very inconsistent grind size. A lot of big pieces, medium pieces, and ultrafine particles. All of these are going to extract at different rates, and so your coffee is not going to taste nearly as good as if it was a uniform grind. And that really is the goal of a coffee grinder, is to get us a uniform size. All right, in our second tier, we get into what we think of as controlled coffee grinders because they use a burr. Now, a burr is any kind of a mechanism where the coffee is going between 2 rotating pieces, and whether they're close together or far apart is what determines how coarsely or how finely the coffee is broken up. And the more precisely that burr is machined and the sharper it is, the more uniformity of pieces you're going to get. These 2 are burr grinders, but they're what I like to call a mini-burr grinder, not because they're miniature, but because the burr set themselves is very, very small. Usually when you're looking at a mini-burr grinder, the big downside is that they're not very fast. This thing takes forever to grind coffee, and the way that this one works around it is that it spins its motor incredibly fast. The problem with that is that this is just plain aggravating, and this one is so violent that it tends to produce a lot of coffee dust, which will over-extract and add a lot of bitterness. One of the elements that's very common with these style of grinders is a bean hopper, and you won't find these on premium grinders because the bean hopper allows your beans to oxidize and lose flavor over time. And unless you're using all of the coffee you put in here within a day or two, you're just throwing flavor away. So as we go up through the tiers, you're going to see this feature disappear because single dose grinding, meaning the grinder only holds the coffee you're grinding right then for that brewing session, results in much better quality overall. The third tier of coffee grinders we're going to look at is what I like to think of as a Sharp-Burr grinder. So it uses the same basic mechanism as a Mini-Burr grinder, but instead of using a very small ceramic burr and taking forever or using extremely high speed, these coffee grinders are going to use very, very sharp and precisely milled steel burrs that instead of crushing the coffee, they actually cut the coffee. Not only are the burrs sharper, but they're usually more securely mounted within the mechanism, resulting in much more fine control over how close or how far apart they are, giving you a much better grind size. Hand grinders in this category are much more enjoyable to use, and they're far faster than mini-burr grinders. They typically feature better handles, better machining, better materials. Overall, the experience is just better, and so is the coffee they produce. Likewise, the electric versions, because they're using high-quality, sharp steel burrs, they don't need to spin fast, so they are far, far quieter, and usually overall even faster than mini-burr grinders, producing a much more uniform grind size at the end with far less ultrafine particles. The fourth and final tier we're going to look at today are what I like to think of as premium espresso capable grinders. So this is anything over $150. And these are essentially Sharp-Burr grinders that are built to an even higher standard, and they are capable of ultra fine adjustment, which is what you need when you're making espresso. When you pick up a coffee grinder like this, they don't look like much, but man, they are heavy and solid. And not only are they using a sharp burr, but typically a bigger diameter burr, and it's even more precisely mounted than in the previous tier, and that's what you're paying for. They also tend to have a lot of comfort features that do make the experience way, way better. In the case of my hand grinder, it actually uses a numbered system with a very comfortable, easy to use dial adjustment here that is color and number coded. In the case of this Turin grinder, it has a pair of bellows on the top to push through any coffee that might have gotten stuck during the grinding process to make sure that you clean all of the coffee out every time you grind it. So if you're switching from one variety to another variety, from one grower or one part of the world, you're not going to be mixing and matching your taste, but cleaning out your grinder every single time. They often also will feature anti-static features and anti-clumping features. All of these things are not necessary to get really great coffee, but they just help the user experience. And of course, they are actually capable of the very fine adjustment necessary for making espresso. So I've chosen to show you these grinders as electric and hand grinder pairs on purpose, because I want you to understand that for any given quality level, from basic all the way to premium, you can find both. And you're gonna find a trade-off that mirrors each other, whether you buy electric or a hand grinder. So with electric, they're always bigger, but they're faster. With hand grinders, they're slower, but they're smaller. You're gonna pay more money over here for the convenience. You're gonna save money over here, but you're gonna have to do all the work yourself. And for some people like me, I like the small form factor. I like saving a little bit of money and still getting a fantastic level of grind consistency. But for somebody like my mom who struggled with tendonitis and doesn't always have the grip strength to comfortably use a hand grinder, well then it's absolutely worth it to pay for having an electric motor. I think that most people should look at getting a Sharp-Burr grinder. They perform way better than Mini-Burr grinders and definitely uncontrolled grinders, and the price keeps coming down year after year. A few years ago, you couldn't find one for under $100, and now you can get a great one for about $30. If you really want the extra convenience features, or if you're getting into espresso, then I do think it's worth it to get all the way into that premium category, because even there's some great value to be had if you shop around a little bit and aren't afraid to read reviews. Now, I should warn you that some of the terms I'm using today, such as Mini-Burr, Sharp-Burr, or premium, these are not commonly used phrases in the industry. I'm using them because they make sense and it's easy to understand. But you're not gonna find a grinder that says, this is a Sharp-Burr grinder. So how do you know that it's a Sharp-Burr versus a Mini-Burr, or what puts it in the premium category? Well, the premium one is basically anything over 150 bucks, and a Sharp-Burr grinder is gonna show you a picture of the burr. And you can see this just by going on Amazon. If you look up coffee grinders, you'll see that some of them are gonna show you a picture of the burr, and that pretty much guarantees it's a sharp steel burr. It's gonna cut your beans more than it crushes them. If it doesn't show you a picture of it, well, it might still have a sharp burr, so read through the description. If it tells you that it's made out of stainless steel of a particular size, or if you see review images that show the burrs and they look like what I showed you here today, then it's a Sharp-Burr grinder. If it doesn't tell you and it just says burr grinder, you should assume it's a Mini-Burr, or for a hand grinder if the price point is between $10 to $20. You're not gonna get a Sharp-Burr grinder there. Even though the prices are coming down, they're not quite that low yet. On a personal note, I would just say that it's worth it sometimes to spend a little bit more to get something that's really high quality, because it's gonna last for a long time and it's not gonna constantly irritate you, which sometimes is worth overpaying for if it's something you're gonna use day after day. But whatever design or brand or model you end up choosing, go make yourself a cup of coffee, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.